One guy stands out above all others under the broad Yukon sky, where gold fever spreads through mountain communities and the sound of heavy gear booms across frozen rivers. Tony Beets, the Dutch-born miner with a big personality who has been in some of Gold Rush's most memorable moments, has made a fortune as big as the area he calls home. But how did a skinny youngster from Texel become the king of Klondike gold? And what does a modern-day gold baron do when he or she enjoys the finer things in life, outside the loud sluice boxes and huge dredges? In this in-depth look, we'll talk about Tony's spectacular rise, the lavish lifestyle he's built from yellow metal, and the hidden luxuries that lay beneath the rough surface of his placer mining enterprise. Anton Beets was born in 1959 on the small Dutch island of Texel. As a youngster, he came to Canada to start a new life. He found work on different mining crews with nothing more than a strong work ethic and a strong confidence in the value of raw materials. Tony used to sleep in insulated tents, shackled to the cold of northern evenings, and lived on freeze-dried food and instant coffee. But even then, he stood out because he had a natural talent for machines and geology. Tony noticed chances when experienced miners slid heavy machinery over creeks covered in ice. These included secret pay streaks, untested river benches, and the potential to try out risky digging methods. He bought his first tiny claim near Dawson City when he was 19, borrowing money with no promise of paying it back. But within a few months, he hit a rich vein and paid off his loan, leaving him with enough gold to buy a small bulldozer. From then on, Tony's path looked like the compound growth curves he eventually taught on camera. Every summer, he put the money he made back into bigger, newer dredges and yarder systems. By the end of the 1990s, he held several claims in the Klondike area. People said that he moved more gold each season than all of his competitors' workers put together. But Tony wasn't just different because of the machines, he was also different because he was so sure of himself even when things were dangerous. He would rig pumps to keep things going even when water levels rose or weather warnings came in. He would weld steel liners to sluice boxes to make them stronger, and he would adapt dredging pontoons to survive sharp ice flows. People were amazed at how eager he was to bet six-figure amounts on untested seals and custom-made dredge chutes. He didn't get rich by chance, he did it by being bold and having technical skills. Tony's tastes changed as his yearly profits went beyond $2 million. He turned an old riverboat from the gold rush into a floating lounge with mahogany-paneled walls, etched brass fixtures and a tiny bar stocked with aged scotches. He would invite devoted staff members and famous people who were visiting, pop-up visitors from high-profile reality shows, to sip single malts under the soothing glow of Edison bulb sconces when he had a few minutes to spare from his never-ending job. That sign for the men's club that floated showed a change. Mining was no longer just a way to get rich, it was the start of a life so luxurious that it could rival any city penthouse. When he got back to shore, Tony bought a home on the river with luxurious features that complemented his strong nature. The cavernous great room had a double-sided fireplace made of local quartz, and the western wall had a bespoke gun rack with old flintlocks and new weapons on display. This was a reference to both his history and his frontier background. His kitchen had professional-grade appliances that could roast whole caribou, and a secret wine cellar cut beneath permafrost that kept cases of Bordeaux and Napa wines at a steady 55 degrees all year. A attached garage nearby held a series of luxury cars, including Range Rovers, a blacked-out Hummer H2, and sometimes a shiny old Cadillac Eldorado for Sunday drives along the Klondike Highway. Even the way Tony dressed casually said a lot about his wealth. He liked made-to-measure wool pants and European leather boots that were good for traveling in the backcountry but also looked good. He wore weathered flannel shirts and insulated jackets over them. His wrist regularly showed off a heavy-duty Swiss chronograph, its polished bezel glinting in the snow. This was an amusing luxury for a man who used to say, "Always spend on the drill, not the wristwatch." But as he got richer, Tony learned to appreciate craftsmanship outside of mining tools. That expensive watch is both a statement and a status symbol today. It reminds him that he had to work hard to survive in one of the world's harshest places and earned the right to enjoy the finer things in life. Tony's heart beats strongest in the mine, even though he has big houses and old cars. Every spring, when the ice melts, he personally oversees the installation of the dredge, the welding of the pontoons, the alignment of the sluice riffles, and the calibration of the high-pressure monitors. You can see how the rich and the hard work come together when you watch him walk across gravel covered in rocks while yelling orders into a two-way radio. Living in luxury and working hard are two sides of the same Klondike coin. We'll take off more layers in the next parts, from the champagne bottles he pops after record-breaking holidays to the family vacations on tropical islands that happen at the end of each season. We'll look into the psychology behind his spending, such why a man who was born in 11 below zero weather throws summer parties, and how Tony Beets balances the scale between money made and money enjoyed. One thing is evident through it all: in the world of gold mining, where every nugget tells a narrative, Tony's most interesting story is not written in ounces of gold, but in the rich tapestry of a life lived full, on his own terms. Tony Beets lives life to the fullest from the moment the drill head breaks through the permafrost each spring until the last sluice box closes down for the season. But when he leaves the claim, he enters a world of polished luxury that few people would expect to come from 18-hour Arctic workdays. His riverfront estate is both a trophy and a safe place to stay, with touches of luxury in every detail. The private airport he created out of the jungle 20 miles outside of Dawson City is the main attraction. Tony owns a twin-engine Cessna that he flies himself, unlike other miners who use chartered flights or bush pilots. The sleek aluminium wings shine in the northern sun, and the leather seats in the cockpit, which have been reupholstered in custom burgundy suede, demonstrate that he likes to make workhorses into flying showpieces. He guides the plane down the gravel runway, its roaring propellers cutting through the clear morning air. He lands next to his hangar, which is a steel-clad cathedral that holds not only the Cessna but also a Cherokee 6 and a superbly preserved de Havilland Beaver floatplane. Tony's characteristic orange and black stripes are on every plane. They show that he owns the plane and that he is proud of how decisively he conquers the skies, just like he conquers gold fields. Tony's attention to detail within the hangar is as good as his work on the sluice box. There are tool cabinets around the walls, and each drawer is clearly labeled and only has metric sockets, precision calipers, and aerospace-grade fasteners in it. There are also unexpected signs of luxury among the wrenches and spare parts. For example, there is a glass-fronted humidor filled with Cuban Cohiba Behique and a custom minibar made from reused railway ties, with crystal decanters of Macallan 25-year and Yamazaki 18-year on the shelves. On some Sundays, Tony invites his closest friends to gather under the bright lights and taste rare single malts while talking on where to put the strategic dredge next season. The contrast is striking: tough machines are next to hand-rolled cigars and high-end liquor, but for Tony, it's just the way things are: sweat and savor. Tony's garage is another example of his unusual mix of style and function, moving from machinery to motors. He owns a fleet of bespoke snowmobiles, which are Arctic Cat CTZ2 machines that have been upgraded with alloy track frames and shock absorbers that have been retuned for high-speed runs on powder fields. Each sledge is painted in his characteristic colors and has his initials on it, making every winter journey feel like a private Grand Prix. But when Tony really wants to be alone, he gets behind the wheel of his 1971 Chevrolet Camaro RS, a muscle car he brought over from the US and carefully repaired at his garage. As he drives along the Ice River Road, the V8 rumbling fills the yard and the gearshifts reverberate off the pine trees. The car's interior is black leather with orange stitching, which is a subtle nod to his mining colors. A modern entertainment system is built in so that the automobile stays true to its time period. Tony's social areas are as nice as those of the richest people in the city. His lakeside resort, which is built on stilts over turquoise waters, is a weekend getaway for investors, TV producers, and sometimes famous people. Floor-to-ceiling windows let in a glimpse of Yukon's rugged splendor, while inside, sumptuous sectional sofas surround a double-sided fireplace made of hand-carved Cloane stone. A tall walnut dining table can seat 12 people. A bespoke chandelier made from old sluice rackets and quarry glass hangs above it. In mid-July, Tony hosts beautiful black tie dinners where he serves fresh Arctic char with burgundy pinots that had been flown in quickly. Waitstaff from Vancouver offer beautiful pastries in honor of his early years in Europe, while local fiddlers play lively reels between courses. The guest house's bathrooms have steam showers and heated slate floors, which provide a big contrast to the cold weather outside. Even the toiletries show off his wealth: a carefully chosen variety of L'Occitane alpine caviar extracts and hand-poured beeswax candles manufactured from beeswax from his own apiary on a sheltering bench downstream. Tony's charitable work goes beyond his own property. He has given money to indigenous scholarship funds and search and rescue equipment. But the atmosphere of giving and quiet pleasure can exist at the same time. Every autumn, once the last dredge is winterized, he goes to a secluded cabin on Vancouver Island. Tony trades his insulated canvas jacket for custom cashmere sweaters and hunts blacktail deer on the hills of the coast. The lodge's main hall, which is made of Douglas fir beams, has prize antlers and marine artifacts on display. The veranda next to it looks out over a peaceful cove where his 38-foot Nordic tug waits for fishing trips. Even though Tony is rich, he keeps a schedule that is almost like a monk's throughout these vacations. He drinks coffee on the deck at morning, casts silent drift boats on salmon streams, and spends the nights with close friends smoking expensive cigars and drinking rare wines. These retreats give him new energy and strengthen his view that a guy whose fortunes came from the junction of grit and vision cannot separate raw nature from sophisticated living. Even the clothes he wears at home show how he balances different styles. Most of his work clothes are heavy-duty, like insulated Carhartt bibs, steel-toe boots, and insulated parkas. But he also has racks of high-end designer clothes in the back. Think of Loro Piana cashmere V-necks, Zegna tailored wool coats, and Santilli Italian leather shoes. He wears simple gold cufflinks with mining pickaxe designs with crisp cotton shirts from Milan. This combines the world of custom tailoring with the basic needs of placer mining. He wears midnight blue mohair tuxedos when he does make rare public appearances on talk shows or at gala fundraisers. This shows that he can adapt to many different situations, which is something that not many reality TV stars can do. The private airport, the custom hangar, the exotic cars, the lakeside retreats, the expensive clothes, and the charitable work all come together to paint a picture of Tony Beets that goes beyond the stereotype of a roughneck miner. He has crafted an image as carefully as he puts together his dredges, and he lives a life where luxury is both a reward and proof of victory. But even with all of this luxury, it's his unyielding work ethic and love of a challenge that make him who he is. In the following part, we'll look at how Tony's interactions with other people and his family fit into this lavish lifestyle. This will show us how even the most wealthy empires are held together by human connections. Tony Beets' most valuable possessions are the times he spends with his family, even if he has a polished image of corporate partnerships and vintage cars. Family members move easily between his worlds of luxury and work, from breakfast in his quartz-lined kitchen to late-night brainstorming discussions in his Cessna hangar. Lisa, his wife of more than 30 years, relocated from Europe to the Yukon long before cameras started filming their life. She is both the emotional anchor and the logistical coordinator. She manages the household staff, organizes the invitations to the gala, and makes sure that their 4 children have a healthy upbringing, even though the seasons make it hard. Their oldest son, Bram, worked as an apprentice on the dredge with Tony, learning how to handle pressure and how to weld and align sluices. Sarah and Nico, on the other hand, found things they loved to do outside of mining. Sarah became a landscape photographer who took pictures of Yukon sunsets, while Nico became a junior pilot who logged hours flying the Cherokee 6 with his dad. Tony goes to Lila's dancing recitals with the same intensity that he uses to calibrate sluice boxes, even though they are two very different things. The riverfront compound becomes a place where traditions are passed along on weekends. Tony wants crepes every Sunday morning, and the kids make the batter themselves to make Grandpa happy. These meals are very different from the adrenaline rush of putting together a dredge. One minute you smell maple syrup, and the next you hear engine roars as a pump starts up. Family outings on the restored riverboat combine these two quite different experiences. On deck, the kids practice their reels while Tony and his brothers talk about hydraulic pressures below. Later, Lisa prepares small meals in the boat's mahogany lounge, with wild Yukon salmon and presa wines. She reminds everyone that the greatest way to celebrate gold yields is to strengthen family ties. Even though Tony is a big deal, he is quite protective of his kids' privacy. When the production team suggests a family episode, he talks about what they can and can't do. Cameras can take pictures of groups of people and kids proudly holding coins with nuggets in them, but they can't take pictures of siblings fighting or kids being scared at night because of seasonal closures. This boundary establishing shows that he respects private values, which is different from many reality stars whose family life become public property. He makes a clear difference between the public spectacle and the nurturing environments that ground him. This makes sure that every time he is on film, he shows respect, not exploitation. The relationships he has with his siblings are just as important to Tony's story. His brothers are in charge of claims and share profits. They are also fluent in the engineering language that describes each modification to a hydraulic pump or turbine. They question Tony's plans and suggest more dangerous channels or deeper tailing taps. These lively arguments are like the ones that happen in any family business, but they end every season with a quiet ceremony. An engraved pickaxe is passed down from one generation to the next. Pictures show Tony standing still with his hand on his father's heirloom handle while his nephews and nieces crowd around him. That picture became a symbol of his philosophy, new ideas based on old ones. It was featured on engraved invitation cards delivered to mining partners, which combined personal pride with professional stability. During calm times, Tony works on traditions that show both wealth and humility. He organizes a chocolate and storytelling circle in the riverfront great room every winter solstice. As he talks about his boyhood recollections of Texel's flat farmlands and the thunderous boom of the Yukon River's spring melt, guests cluster around Kluang granite hearths. On these nights, people take off their costly tweed jackets and put on cabin sweaters. The guest house's crystal decanters are replaced by basic mugs of spiced hot chocolate. Family stories become into oral archives that connect stories from European peasants with stories from the frontier. These get-togethers are like live examples of how Tony's empire is built on shared tradition and community warmth, even though it has a diamond-encrusted reputation. The Beets family calendar looks like a mix of mining schedules and high society social calendars. There are times when there are fundraisers for search and rescue helicopters and times when there are dredge maintenance marathons. Children's dance recitals compete with industry galas, and next season's claim appraisals happen at the same time as charity auctions. But Lisa's smart planning makes sure that each task gets the attention it needs. She throws themed gala luncheons on their family airfield and sees charitable guests getting off the Cessna. As they land on gravel runways, visitors are greeted by workers with caviar canapes and golden brown little blinis. It's a surprising taste of city luxury brought to the woods. These orchestrations highlight Tony's unique blend of tough success and refined pleasure. Family holidays add another layer to Beets' magnificent tapestry. After each dredging season, they go back to their villas, which are sunny and have marble floors and infinity pools instead of permafrost and sluice beds. At dawn, kids swim while Tony does Taoist Tai Chi on terraces that look out over the sea. People always talk about how well the sluices operate, which shows that work and play go hand in hand. The Beets family has a different pace in their sun-drenched villas than the Yukon does, which is always demanding. Imagine a Mediterranean estate on a cliff, with vines climbing up the terracotta walls and the smell of jasmine in the warm sea breezes. On Thursday afternoons, Sarah takes pictures of the colors of the sunrise, and Bram looks for unusual olive trees in the area that might be good for Tony's experimental infused oils. Nico teaches local waters around the property's infinity pool, showing off the excellent control he learned flying his Beechcraft over icy rivers. Meanwhile, Lila's dancing company puts on impromptu shows on a terrace with marble tiles. Even Tony, whose iconic silhouette is usually highlighted against metal sluice boxes, takes off his leather work gloves and puts on linen sleeves. He spends his mornings tasting local prosciuttos and talking about the microclimates that alter grape tannins. These getaways reinforce a concept he regularly teaches: the best things in life come from places other than your main field, whether that's mining gold or cultivating grapes. One night, Tony sets up a yacht trip around the coast at sunset. The Golden Horizon is a 75-foot motor yacht that is very different from the steel dredges that work on Yukon rivers. Under Art Deco lamps, champagne flutes clink on polished teak decks. The family sails past hidden coves and gets off on quiet beaches where crabs cook over open flames and people toast to the day's bounty. Tony talks about opening new claims and the next dredge prototype while everyone laughs and feels the salty winds. He reminds everyone that for him, adventure and business go hand in hand. But even with all the luxury, the Beets family's charitable work is still based on the land that made them rich. Every summer, Tony throws a charity banquet called Gold for Good on top of a bluff beside the Yukon River. Crystal chandeliers swing from canvas tents, and white linen-covered tables are set up for dignitaries, local indigenous chiefs, and mining inspectors. Live auctions have one-of-a-kind items, such a miniature replica dredge made from driftwood by local artists, a supper beneath the northern lights prepared by Michelin-trained chefs, and private flight lessons with Tony in his Cessna. The money raised goes to scholarships for indigenous children who want to study engineering or aviation, maintain search and rescue helicopters, and do research on how climate change is melting permafrost. The after-party for the banquet takes place on the restored riverboat, where shiny brass fixtures reflect grins lit by shimmering candles. Instead of showing off, Tony sees these events as acts of stewardship, which means that people who are lucky should take care of their community and the environment. In the winter, people are generous in a different way. When the temperature drops below -40 degrees Fahrenheit, Tony's complex becomes a place of refuge. He hires semi-trucks full of insulated gear, high-calorie food, and portable generators, then sends his own team to faraway cabin villages where ice storms often cut off their supply lines. He works with local counselors and search and rescue teams, using his own fleet of beaver floatplanes to get to remote residences. Images of Tony distributing kerosene heaters or handing out comfort packages circulate extensively, transforming his public image from a hard-headed prospector to a kindly guardian of the North. The reaction on social media shows how different things are. The same hands that weld sluice boxes now warm families in need and bring them food when official aid is sometimes too late. The Beets family keeps up less well-known traditions of giving in addition to big celebrations. Every harvest season, they hold community dredge days, which let local kids explore active claims with an adult. With helmets on, teens learn how sluice riffles catch gold and listen to Bram explain how slurry works with the excitement of a teacher. At the end of the day, Tony gives each participant a little nugget on a keychain as a physical reminder of their goals and dreams. He sparks interest and plants seeds for the next generation of engineers, geologists, and pilots who may one day do even better than he has by making his work less mysterious. These charitable projects do two things: they give Tony's personal mission new life and strengthen the story he and Lisa tell the world. He connects the ultra-rich with the frontier mentality he grew up with by being kind in a planned way. These actions are not merely a publicity ploy, they come from a strongly held belief that success is not just measured in ounces of gold but also in lives improved and traditions kept. As the seasons change again, Tony balances these charitable duties with getting ready for the next gold season. As work gloves go back on hands that guided him across infinity pools weeks ago, winter solstice stories give way to dredge designs and equipment plans. In the spring, when the ice lets go of the riverbeds, both dredges and charity drives go into high gear. This is because of Tony Beets, who was a great placer miner and a good steward of communities, combining wealth with duty. Tony has built an empire that goes beyond the shine of gold by using these private luxuries, family ties, and charitable work. He shows that real riches is made up of many things, like the roar of motors, the silence of knowing smiles, and the echo of lives changed. In the last part, we'll look at how Tony's public image, created by camera angles and edited highlights from Gold Rush, both reflects and differs from this complex reality. We'll also look at the tension between what we see on TV and what we actually experience. People who know Tony best believe that his real strength is in the private world he develops around family, tradition, and calm kindness. This is different from the public image he has of huge dredges booming over frozen riverbeds. There is a partnership with Lisa Beets that goes beyond TV contracts and mining seasons, even though the heavy machinery and custom garrets look like they are made of forged metal. Lisa came to Texel as a youngster, but she learned the Yukoners beat decades before cameras ever filmed. This made their marriage a perfect mix of European grace and northern grit. She is Tony's trusted friend and runs the complicated household by making sure that the staff schedules are up to date, making sure that the family's dignity is protected in press materials, and planning social events that show off both his status and their shared beliefs. Lisa's touch makes sure that every gala tent and riverside hideaway reflects the host's aspirations. Sophistication is based on authenticity, and extravagance is tempered by purpose. Every Sunday morning, the whole Beets family gathers in the kitchen, which is lined with quartz. Tony flips the first dozen crepes, Bram and Sarah arrange fresh berries, and Lila reads from the family journal. Kids run around on the floor, their laughing mixing with the soothing hum of the underfloor heating. This is a big change from the cacophony of motors that usually fills Tony's days. These little things provide him the strength he needs to do the hard task ahead. But he is nonetheless very careful about their privacy. When the production crew asks for film of bedtime routines or furious arguments between siblings, Lisa sets explicit limits. Cameras might be able to take pictures of groups of people with frosted windows in the background, but they can't catch private discussions or tears shed over dig delays. In this way, Tony balances his reality TV exposure with real-life stewardship. He protects the integrity of family life while also using his famous position to boost humanitarian projects and branding efforts. Tony's brothers and sisters are also important parts of the empire's beating heart. Every spring, he holds a secret meeting in the hangar. Welders and hydraulic engineers sit next to brothers who question his sluice techniques, arguing about whether to keep tailings or paystreak yield. These talks, which are lively, end with a ritual passing of the engraved pickaxe from one patriarch to the next. Pictures of that moment, Tony holding the treasure beneath fluorescent lights, became a symbol of continuity and were used on letterheads and gala invitations. But when the cameras aren't there, the brothers work on quiet projects, like changing the angles of the sluice lining or testing new dredge motor bearings in the back bay of the hangar. These engineering experiments are part of family history, so every new idea that makes gold has the mark of teamwork instead of individual success. Another part of the Beets family's private compass is philanthropy. The Gold for Good event every summer draws dignitaries, tribal chiefs, and government officials. But behind the fancy auctions and crystal chandeliers is months of organizing by regular people. Lisa and Tony read grant applications by candlelight to choose scholarship winners for aviation and engineering degrees. They look over research ideas on their own to make sure that the money goes to programs that are good for the environment. In the winter, semi-trucks full of supplies go to remote cabins. This is all planned from the command station in the hangar. The Beets legacy is made up of the hours of crate unloading and village outreach that aren't televised, even if TV cameras focus on the spectacle of hot meals being delivered by floatplane. These acts of service blur the boundary between being very generous and being very responsible. They show that the person who did them believes that the best use of their wealth is to help others. The contrast between private rituals and televised events creates an interesting tension. Viewers observe Tony giving short orders and holding hydraulic wrenches like ceremonial scepters on air. They see him caressing Sarah's shoulder after a summer gallery show or listening closely as Bram talks about a new approach for managing tailings. These softer moments don't always make it into the broadcast edit, but they have a much longer-lasting effect on his personal brand. People are interested in the visible activity that earns trust, like welding sluice gates at -30 degrees Fahrenheit, but the actual currency of trust is the time spent mentoring family and strengthening community bonds that isn't seen. By controlling the story surrounding these private moments, Lisa and Tony are able to adjust their media presence such that headlines capture both the noise of motors and the quiet of familial devotion. Every autumn, the Beets complex goes from hosting charitable events to preparing for winter. As Tony and his Frontier crew work on next season's plans under low-wattage industrial lighting, winter solstice storytelling retreats give way to frost-lined blueprints. Even during these slow months of planning and welding, the memories of family are still strong. While Sarah uses her laptop to look at topographical surveys for new claims, Bram fine-tunes the sluice riffles. Lila's dance practices are also ergonomic case studies of balance and form, which Tony uses to figure out how to set up sluice beds. Most fans don't see these cross-disciplinary exchanges, but they make sure that new technologies come from the imagination of many people working together instead of just one person. Every shiny gold nugget in this business has the mark of a common vision and competence from many generations. These intimate parts of Tony Beets' life, his relationship with Lisa, the way he takes care of his kids, the way he gets along with his siblings, and the charitable actions he does that no one knows about, keep his empire from being just a show. Tony maintains a basic authenticity that cameras alone cannot replicate by incorporating family ties and community devotion into every aspect of his lavish existence. In the next section, we'll look at how his TV persona fits into this complicated reality. We'll look at the selective storytelling choices made by the Gold Rush editors and the way mythmaking and lived experience work together. Gold Rush shows Tony Beets as a harsh, almost mythical mining mogul who barks short instructions into a radio and uses hydraulic wrenches like scepters. However, the show skillfully cuts out the details that make him both accessible and very human. His booming voice is caught on camera at his dredges churn freezing rivers, but almost every kind supper with Lisa, every quiet family storytelling circle around the granite hearth, and every sweet moment of mentorship with Bram or Sarah just disappears in the cut. The big difference between what people see on film and what really happens behind the scenes shows the difference between Tony's public persona and his true life. The producers of Gold Rush create a tight story arc with high-stakes engineering problems and dramatic machinery failures, things that are meant to boost ratings, while leaving gentler, relationship-driven moments on the cutting room floor. Conflict is made worse in each episode. Producers pick camera angles that highlight Tony's worried face, short answers, and inflexible expectations. When there are disagreements during planning sessions, the most dramatic sentences are used to make him look like a merciless taskmaster. But these scenes are made out of hours of footage that have been carefully structured to make things more tense. On the other hand, moments of compromise, like when Tony listens carefully to a child's photographic project or gently supports a weak community elder, are cut down to save time. This planned editorial approach builds a public story that relies significantly on tension, technical spectacle, and one strong presence. The altered character goes beyond how people interact with each other to how they see risk and reward. A scene where Tony triumphantly hauls in a record-breaking gold yield will often lead to a cameo of celebratory Scotch pours, as if wealth flows down without the hard work of winterized dredge maintenance, endless negotiations with stakeholders, or the emotional toll of seasonal uncertainty. People may never see the late-night strategy discussions he has with indigenous elders, the thorough safety checks he makes sure happen, or the intimate vows he makes with Lisa to keep their family's privacy. Gold Rush offers a simpler picture by simply showing a small part of these decisions. Tony Beets, the unstoppable force. But even legendary people need to be real to be believable. Tony and Lisa control the story in a subtle way by letting or not letting people see certain scenes behind the cameras. They let video crews attend dredge summits, equipment tests, and gala fundraisers, but they don't let them inside family events or business conversations that could ruin the drama or show private weaknesses. This carefully planned openness keeps the show exciting, full of mechanical suspense and tough determination, while also letting us see Tony's deeper commitments, like his role as a community scholarship steward, his fierce protection of family privacy, and his personal struggles with injury or equipment failure that don't fit into an episodic climax. The conflict between myth and truth becomes a useful tool. The by-the-book editing, on the other hand, creates the kind of visceral TV that gets people to watch and brings in money from sponsors. On the other side, Tony's kindness and hands-on mentorship off-camera create the goodwill that turns viewers into lifetime admirers. People who learn about his winter relief work or his candid criticism of environmental regulations often become brand advocates and share content that goes much beyond what is seen on the show. The broadcast persona and the private benefactor work together to generate two engines. One keeps people's attention for a short time, and the other fosters long-term loyalty. This mix of myth on TV and real life also affects Tony's business dealings. When he releases a limited edition line of merchandise, like a co-branded toolkit or a gold pan to remember him by, he uses the image of himself as a strict engineer on screen. But the true draw is the unscripted reviews and demos he posts on his private social media accounts, where he unboxes prototypes with family members, tries things in the store, and asks for direct feedback. Fans who find these unedited reviews often think they are more reliable than the polished ads that are mixed throughout Gold Rush. In the end, the Gold Rush editor's chosen narrative creates a strong, if incomplete, myth, a pioneer who fights against both natural and human difficulties. But the strongest connection happens when they connect that story to the private world that Tony has carefully built. They see a man who welds sluice gates at dawn and then quietly guides his daughter through dance recitals by dusk, a leader who negotiates big equipment leases and then negotiates scholarship terms for aspiring engineers, and a celebrity who is on screen all the time but loves family time that isn't on TV. This complex tapestry, which is equal parts drama, depth, spectacle, and sincerity, shows why Tony Beets is still one of the most interesting people on reality TV.